I was 32 when I decided to escape my routine. I booked an Airbnb cabin by a misty lake in the Appalachian mountains. It seemed perfect for inspiration. I pictured quiet mornings, fresh air, and lots of writing. On the first day, everything felt normal. The cabin was cozy, with pictures of beautiful landscapes on the walls. I sat by the window, listening to the rustling leaves outside. I felt relaxed and ready to write. But on the second night, things started to change. I noticed a strange chill in the air. It made me shiver as I sat at the table typing. Then I heard it. A faint tapping on the window. It startled me, and I looked outside. The trees cast shadows, but nothing moved. Maybe it was just my mind playing tricks on me. I tried to focus on my writing, but the tapping grew louder. It turned into rhythmic knocks, like someone was trying to get my attention. My heart raced. Every time I heard it, I felt more uneasy. I couldn't ignore the sound, no matter how hard I tried. Then, I noticed symbols carved into the wooden beams of the cabin. I hadn't seen them before. They looked strange and unsettling. I stepped back in confusion. I thought it was part of the cabin's charm, but deep down, I felt something shift in my gut. The isolation was heavy on me. It felt like I was losing touch with reality. I started to convince myself it was just the wind or something settling. But late at night, when everything quieted down, I saw shadowy figures at the edges of my vision. They flickered in and out, just beyond where I could see. I could feel the hairs on my neck stand up. There were moments I felt like I was being watched, and it sent chills down my spine. As the week dragged on, I became more unnerved. I lost track of time and sleep. I felt drained and paranoid. The tapping continued like a clock ticking away my sanity. Each day brought more sightings of those shadowy figures, always lingering on the periphery. On my last night, I decided I couldn't stay any longer. I felt trapped. I packed my things quickly, my hands shaking. The symbols stared at me from the walls as I walked out the door. I glanced back at the cabin, unsure about what I really experienced. As I drove away, my heart felt heavy. I didn't find the truth behind the tapping or the symbols. I still wonder if it was all in my tired mind, or if something else was really there. Driving down that winding road, I thought I saw a figure in the rearview mirror, standing at the cabin's door, watching me leave. I pulled onto the main road, my mind racing. Relief washed over me, but the gnawing unease lingered. I wanted to shake off the feeling, to forget about the tapping and the shadows. The beauty of the mountains surrounded me, yet it felt suffocating. I focused on the curves of the road, trying to clear my head. But then I remembered my phone. I grabbed it from the passenger seat, hoping the lack of signal wouldn't matter. I had to let someone know where I was. My friends would want to hear about my getaway and the odd things I had experienced. I sent a quick text, then found myself staring at the screen, waiting for a response that never came. As I drove, clouds gathered overhead. Suddenly, I felt the urge to turn back. I pushed the thought away, gripping the steering wheel tighter. I didn't want to be anywhere near that cabin again. That place felt wrong. As I drove through small towns, I spotted a diner. A warm meal would distract me. I pulled into the parking lot, hoping for normalcy. The building was old but had a charm about it. I stepped inside, the smell of fried food hitting me. The diner was almost empty. I sat at a booth, ordered a coffee, and scrolled through my phone. As I waited, I overheard two men at the counter speaking in low voices. They glanced at me, then continued their conversation, their tones serious. Their words drifted to my ears. "Can't believe it's true." One of them gestured vaguely with his hand. "People keep disappearing near the lake. You hear about that cabin?" My stomach twisted. I tried to listen more closely, but the clattering of plates drowned them out. I felt my heart race as I remembered the cold air and the shadowy figures. I wanted to brush it off, to remind myself it was all just a trick of my imagination. but the unease crept back like a lingering chill. I left the booth to grab a coffee refill, hoping to quell the anxious thrum in my chest. As I approached the counter, the men fell silent, their eyes narrowing at me. I held my breath, then forced a smile. "Just grabbing some coffee," I said, trying for casual. One man leaned closer to his companion and whispered, loud enough for me to hear, "You think she saw something?" I froze. Panic surged as I poured my coffee. I didn't want to be the subject of their conversation. Despite my best efforts, I felt their eyes burning into me. I hurried back to my booth, my hands trembling around the cup. I tried to calm myself, but couldn't. My phone buzzed with a notification. I quickly checked it. A message read, "Did something happen at the cabin?" That's when I saw it. A figure outside the diner window. It stood motionless, watching me. My heart dropped. The diner felt suddenly tight, the laughter and chatter around me fading. I blinked, but the figure remained, cloaked in shadow against the glowing diner lights. I turned to look at the men. They were staring at me. As I processed what was happening, I realized they knew. They knew something I didn't. I felt trapped in that moment, fear tightening its grip. I had to leave. Now. The bell above the diner door chimed as I rushed outside, my heart pounding. I glanced back, half expecting the men to follow me. Instead, they were still at the counter, whispering urgently. I didn't wait to find out what they were discussing. I climbed into my car and locked the doors, breathing heavily. I took a moment to gather my thoughts. The figure was still outside, lurking in the shadows. I squinted, trying to make it out, but it melted into the dark like smoke. My instincts screamed at me to drive away, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I might need to confront whatever was happening. It felt like the whole world had shrunk to my car, filled with oppressive silence and the weight of unseen eyes. I turned the key in the ignition, hoping the engine wouldn't protest. The roar of the engine broke the quiet, and I peeled away from the diner, praying I wouldn't look back. As I drove, I tried to calm myself, but each twist of the road reminded me of the cabin. I decided to head further away, into town, where I might find more people. Maybe someone could help me make sense of what was going on. I spotted a small bookstore with a sign advertising local history. Perfect, I thought. I could dive into what really lay behind those deserted woods and the lake that shimmered under the stormy sky. I parked hastily and rushed inside, the bell chiming as I opened the door. The air was musty, filled with the scent of old paper and ink. A woman stood behind the counter, her curls framing a face that held decades of secrets. I approached her, my voice shaky. "Do you have anything on the local legends? I need to understand what's been happening around the lake." She studied me with narrowed eyes. "What exactly are you looking for?" "Strange happenings. Disappearances." I hesitated, the words chilling me. "Maybe ghosts or things like that?" Her expression shifted, a mixture of concern and curiosity. "You should be careful how much you poke into that. Some things are better left alone." I felt a ripple of fear. "There are people that have disappeared, right? Near the cabin, the lake?" She nodded slowly, her voice tightening. "Yes, it's a sad history. People who went in never came back. Some say they heard whispers before they vanished." Whispers. The word echoed in my mind, intertwining with memories of the tapping sounds from the cabin. I had to know more. "Can you tell me what happened? Please, I need to know." She took a deep breath, glancing around as if checking for ears. "There are tales. Some say the water is cursed. Others believe it's something that watches from the woods. Not everyone who goes there leaves." The urgency of her warning washed over me. I didn't want to hear more, yet I needed to understand what I was dealing with. Just then, the doors swung open and a gust of wind rushed in. A figure stepped inside, soaking wet and shivering. My heart dropped as recognition hit. The man from the diner stood before me, eyes wild and frantic. "I need your help," he shouted, looking directly at me. The man's voice pierced through the musty air of the bookstore. His hair clung to his forehead, dripping water onto the wooden floor. I barely had time to process his sudden appearance before he started pacing, hands wringing together. "Please, you have to listen," he urged, eyes darting toward the door. "I think they're coming for me." "Who is?" I stammered, my pulse quickening again. "The ones from the diner. They're not what they seem. I overheard them talking. They want to keep what's in the woods quiet." His words whipped through my mind like a cold wind. "What do you mean?" He leaned closer, voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "They know about the lake, the disappearances. They didn't just happen by accident. It's something in those woods. It's watching." I opened my mouth to respond, but he continued, urgency driving his words. "I went back to the cabin after you left. I found something that's been hidden for years." "What did you find?" I asked, feeling both intrigued and terrified. He hesitated, as if weighing the consequences of sharing. Then he pulled out a crumpled piece of paper from his jeans and handed it to me. It felt heavy in my hands. I unfolded it carefully, revealing a sketch of the lake. In the margins were hasty notes, scribbled in a frantic manner. I could barely make them out, but one word stood out more than the others. "Whispers. Some locals believe you can hear them if you listen closely. I didn't believe it until I stood by the lake myself. I swear I heard something call my name." His voice dropped to a whisper. "It feels like it knows me." "What are you saying?" "Maybe you were just imagining things," I replied weakly, but a thread of doubt wormed its way into my mind. "It was real," he shot back, panic rising in his tone. "And those men from the diner, they were waiting for me after I left the woods. They don't want anyone to know about what's happening." Before I could respond, the bell above the door jingled again. I turned to see the woman from behind the counter watching us with a frown, a glimmer of concern in her eyes. "You two shouldn't be talking about this here," she warned. "It's not safe." I tossed a glance back at the man. The fear etched in his expression mirrored my own. I knew the risk of staying, but leaving felt impossible. "We need to get out of here," he urged. "We can't stay in town, not with them around." I nodded, heart racing. We needed somewhere to go, somewhere safe. But where? The thought of the cabin sent chills down my spine. Could we really face whatever lurked by the lake? "Okay," I said, sounding more confident than I felt. "Let's go." We bolted for the door, but as we stepped outside, the atmosphere shifted. The air grew heavy, as if the very world were holding its breath. And then I heard it. A distant sound carried on the wind, like a whisper cutting through the silence. My stomach dropped, and for a split second I was paralyzed. "Run!" the man shouted, snapping me out of it, and we took off, running down the street, the whispers fading but not far behind. The pavement rushed beneath our feet as we sprinted past the fading lights of the diner. I risked a glance over my shoulder, half expecting to see shadowy figures emerge from the darkness. But there was nothing, just the eerie quiet of the night closing in around us. "Where are we going?" I shouted, breathless. "Not far. I know a place," he replied, determination lining his features. I couldn't decipher his expression, fear or resolve. It drove me forward. We ducked into a narrow alley, the cold air wrapping around us like a shroud. The whispers seemed distant now, retreating like the tide, but I couldn't shake the fear tightening in my chest. It wasn't just the unknown that scared me. It was the certainty that something was out there. We pushed past crates and old trash cans, our footsteps muffled. "Here!" he gasped, shoving open a rusty metal door that led to an old storage shed. It creaked ominously as he pulled me inside, slamming the door shut. The darkness engulfed us, but the cramped space smelled of damp wood and must. I leaned against the wall, trying to catch my breath. What now? He glanced around, as if he expected someone to burst through the door at any moment. We hide for a bit, then figure out our next move. I nodded, but felt a gnawing uncertainty. Do you think they followed us? I hope not, but we can't stay here long. He took a deep breath to steady himself, then pulled out the sketch again. This is what matters, the lake, the whispers. I need to know what they mean. I peered closer at the paper, studying the hastily drawn marks. One jagged line caught my eye, cutting through the lake's edge, labeled simply, Path to the Heart. What is this supposed to be? I asked, my curiosity battling fear. People say there's an old path leading deeper into the woods, he said, tracing the line with his finger. It might lead to the truth about the disappearances. I think the whispers come from there. A creeping dread settled in my stomach. And what if we find that truth? He looked at me, fear mingling with resolve. We have to take the risk, or they win. Just then, a noise outside pulled my focus. A low rumble, almost like voices, floated through the thin walls. Do you hear that? I whispered, my heart pounding again. He nodded, eyes widening. They're looking for me. We have to move. Now. Before I could respond, the door rattled violently. Fear shot through me as I saw shadows shifting outside, their murmurs becoming clearer. I caught a sliver of moonlight cutting through a crack as they whispered intentions that chilled my bones. That's when I saw it, he said, voice trembling. One of them had something in their hands, something that caught the light. It looked like... I held my breath, eyes fixed on the door. Every second stretched into eternity, something that looked like a knife. The words hung in the air, laden with dread. The latch clicked, and my heart raced. We had to act fast. I pushed away from the wall, adrenaline surging through me. What do we do? I whispered, panic simmering beneath my skin. Grab anything you can use as a weapon, he said, urgency driving his words. I scanned the space, heart pounding. A rusted metal pipe leaned against one of the dusty shelves. I grabbed it, feeling its weight in my hands. The door rattled harder and I turned back to him. They're coming! We can't stay here! Wait, he said, urgency in his voice. He pulled out a flashlight from his backpack and turned it on, sending a beam of light across the room. Shadows danced on the walls, creating an unsettling backdrop for our fear. The door creaked again, louder this time. I pressed myself against the wall, holding my breath. How do they know where we are? They must have seen us. His face was pale, illuminated by the flickering flashlight. We need to find a way out. The back door? I nodded, my mind racing. There had to be another exit. We couldn't let them find us, not now. He pointed to the back wall, the outline of another door barely visible through the shadows. There, let's go. We moved silently, every step agonizingly slow. The door rattled again, splinters flying as something heavy hit it. Just as we reached the back door, it swung open. A muffled shout echoed in the narrow passage. The beam of sunlight from outside spilled into the shed. I caught a glimpse of a figure standing in the light, their silhouette shrouded by the brightness. I froze in place, my pulse hammering in my ears. What do we do? I gasped, fear paralyzing me. Go! He yelled. Without a second thought, we dashed through the door. I stumbled into the daylight, blinking against the brightness that momentarily blinded me. I bolted down the narrow path beside the shed, heart racing as I glanced back. The figure was following, but they were still a distance away. This way, I shouted, grabbing his arm to pull him in the opposite direction. We skidded around a corner, behind a row of trees, panting heavily. I could hear our breath echoing in the silence around us. Where to now? I asked, scanning the surroundings for any sign of safety. I saw a trail leading to the woods, he said. Fear was draped over his features as he pointed in the direction we needed to go. It'll lead us to the lake, and then maybe we can figure out what's going on. The thought of heading deeper into the woods made me queasy, but I knew we didn't have a choice. The whispers could be heard again, thrumming at the edges of my mind. I could almost feel them calling, beckoning me closer to the chaos awaiting us. Just as we took a step, a sharp yell echoed from behind us. "Hey, stop!" A piercing voice filled with anger and urgency reached our ears. My heart sank. It was too late to turn back now. I took a deep breath, gripping the pipe tightly. "Let's move," I urged, and we sprinted towards the looming trees, desperation pushing us forward. But the whispers grew louder, swirling around me as we entered the darkness of the woods. I fought against the chaos in my mind. "Whatever happens, we have to stick together," I said. Then, before I could process it, I saw it. A glimmer in the distance, shimmering through the trees. A light, something wasn't right. That's when I saw it. I breathed, pointing. "What is that?" The light flickered, almost like it was breathing, and I squinted, trying to get a better look. A chill skittered up my spine. It felt wrong, unnatural, as if whatever was causing it shouldn't exist in the dark woods. "I don't know," he replied, his voice low and cautious. "Maybe it's someone else. Maybe they can help us." But even as he spoke, doubt crept into his tone. I stepped closer, drawn to the light against my better judgment. Or it could be a trap. My own words echoed in my head, a warning I didn't want to heed. "Let's not take any chances," he said. "We should keep moving." He tugged on my arm, but curiosity still pulled at me. With a glance back, I saw shadows dancing further behind us, growing closer. I couldn't let that fear dictate my next move. I shook my head. "We need to check it out. Just a moment." Taking a deep breath, I started walking towards the glimmer. Each step felt heavier, my instincts screaming that I was about to cross a line. I turned to him, my heart racing. "Can you stay back a little? I'll just look." He frowned, concern etched across his face. "Be careful. I'll be right here." I approached the light, and with each inch, the whispers intensified. It felt like the air thickened around us, wrapping around my skin. It nearly stopped me in my tracks. "If anyone is out here, you have to show yourself," I called out, my voice shaky. Then, as if my challenge had been answered, the light pulsed more intensely. I squinted harder and finally saw a figure moving. A woman, tall and ethereal, stood in a small clearing, backlit by the glow. Her hair flowed like wisps of smoke, and her face was shadowed by the light. "Come closer," she beckoned, her voice lilting and sweet, but with an edge that made my stomach drop. "No," I yelled, stepping back. "What do you want?" Her laughter reverberated through the space, sending chills down my spine. "You don't understand. It's all connected." "What is?" I demanded, feeling the tension knot in my chest. Suddenly, the darkness around me started to shift. The trees loomed closer, branch fingers reaching out like they wanted to grab me. I swung around, panic rising again. Where was he? "Come on," I shouted, looking for him. My heart dropped as I spotted him, his face pale and eyes wide as he stood frozen at the edge of the clearing. Without thinking, I lunged back toward him, breaking free from whatever trance held him. "Run," I urged, panic shooting through me again. As we turned to escape, the woman's voice echoed, "You can't run from the truth." I stumbled, desperate to get back toward the trees. The whispers engulfed me, so close I could feel them against my skin. I glanced back, but the woman was gone, the light fading into the darkness. The urgency of our escape surged once more. "Let's go," I panted, and we dashed deeper into the woods, not looking back. But I could still feel her presence, and I knew this wasn't over. As we stumbled into the thicker part of the woods, something caught my eye, another flash of light. This one was different, swirling like mist. My gut twisted. "What now?" "Look," I pointed, breathing hard. There's something else. This needs to stop, he said, his voice steady but laced with fear. I took another step forward, but something rustled behind us in the underbrush. My heart raced again. Whatever was out there was still hunting us in the dark. Keep moving, I urged, feeling the weight of the growing shadows. Just when I thought we could escape, fear pierced through me. Someone or something was drawing closer. My feet pounded the ground, branches clawing at my arms and legs as we rushed deeper into the woods. A part of me wanted to call out again for the light, to understand what it was, but the terror that gripped me halted those thoughts. I had a sinking feeling we weren't safe yet, no matter how far we ran. Do you hear that? He whispered suddenly, stopping short. I nearly collided with him. What? I don't hear anything. I strained to listen, my breath coming in quick gasps. It was too quiet now, too still. The whispers had subsided, leaving behind an oppressive silence that felt heavy in my ears. There, he said, pointing toward the direction we had just come from. My heart froze as I caught movement. A fleeting shadow darted between the trees. We need to hide, he urged, his voice shaking. Where? I hissed, glancing around frantically. Panic made it impossible to think straight. We were in a wide open area, and the nearest cover seemed like a mile away. Over there! He gestured to a cluster of large boulders partially hidden by thick underbrush. Without waiting for me to respond, he dashed towards them. I followed, dread sinking deeper into my stomach. We squeezed behind the rocks, peering out through the foliage like trapped animals. The shadows danced between the trees, and I fought the urge to close my eyes. The silence held a tension that felt like it might snap. What was that? I barely managed to murmur, my throat dry. I don't know, but we're not alone. His eyes were wide, unblinking, fixed on the dark path we'd just traversed. Just as I opened my mouth to suggest we should move again, I felt a shift in the air. The light flickered back into view, illuminating the space just beyond the boulders. It shimmered as if inviting us to come closer, but this time I was too afraid. That's the same light, I whispered, my voice trembling. Is it following us? I think it is, he replied, his brow furrowed in confusion and fear. But why? The light pulsed, a beacon in the oppressive darkness. It felt like something was watching us, like the woods were alive with a presence that was neither friendly nor hostile. It wasn't here to help us. It was here to keep us close, to toy with us. I swallowed hard, the realization hitting me like a cold wave. What if it's not just a light? My mind raced back to the woman, her eerie laughter echoing in my head. What if it's something else? Before he could respond, a rustling sound came from behind us, then a growl, low and menacing. My heart thudded in my chest. We weren't just being watched, we were being hunted. Don't move, he whispered, terror painting his features. I nodded, as icy fear curled around my spine. The growl grew louder, guttural and haunting. We both turned slowly, trying not to breathe, desperate to remain unseen. Then everything went dark, the light extinguished like a snuffed candle. What the hell? I muttered under my breath, panic flooding through me. I could barely see inches in front of my face. And then came the sound of footsteps, crunching twigs and rustling leaves, getting closer. My pulse raced with every sound. We were no longer hiding. Now we were prey. I felt something brush against my arm, cold and heavy, like a hand reaching for me from beyond the grave. My breath caught in my throat, and I realized whatever tracked us in the dark was closing in. I held my breath, fear wrapping around me like a vice. The darkness felt alive, and I couldn't shake the feeling I was being watched from every angle. I reached out to grab him, to let him know I was still there, but my fingers brushed against nothing but cold air. Panic surged through me. "Where are you?" I whispered, trying not to let the tremor in my voice betray my terror. "I'm here," he replied, his voice barely louder than a whisper. I couldn't tell where he was spatially, but his sound felt like a lifeline. "Stay close." The growling shifted location, closer now, circling us like a predator. I could hear it breathing, each exhale heavy, ragged. It wasn't just waiting for the right moment, it was playing with us. "Do you see anything?" I asked, desperate. No. Suddenly the light flickered back into existence, bright and almost blinding. I squinted against the sudden brightness, and there it was. Standing just a few feet away, a twisted form partially obscured by the trees. I felt my pulse drop into my stomach. There was something wrong with it. It wasn't human. Its elongated limbs were too thin, its skin unnaturally pale, reflecting the light like a polished stone, and its eyes, dark hollows that seemed to drink in the illumination. "Run!" he shouted, breaking the spell. Without thinking, I dived into the underbrush, forcing my way through the thick foliage. The growl rose into a furious snarl. Branches whipped against my skin as I sprinted, my breath coming in quick gasps. Behind me, I could hear the creature crashing through the brush, relentless. I dared a glance back to see the light illuminating the path I'd just fled from, casting a glow on the creature's grotesque face. That was a mistake. My foot caught on a hidden root, and I stumbled, hitting the ground hard. My heart raced as I pushed myself up, frantically scanning for my friend. "Where are you?" I yelled in a panic, but my voice echoed, then faded into the silence behind me. I willed myself to stand, but before I could, I felt a heavy weight press down on my back. The creature was upon me. I gasped, but there wasn't time. I threw myself to the side just as it lunged, narrowly avoiding its grasp. I didn't look back, I just ran. The woods blurred around me, branches clawing at my arms as I zigzagged through the darkness, not stopping to breathe. Then I spotted a clearing up ahead and hurtled toward it. As I broke through the trees, the moonlight spilled over me, revealing an old, abandoned cabin. Without thinking, I dashed toward it, praying it would provide some safety. I could hear the creature behind me, roaring in frustration as it skidded to a stop at the edge of the trees. I flung the door open and slammed it shut, heart pounding in my chest. Inside, the musty smell of decay hit me. Shadows danced on the walls. There was an old lantern lying on the floor. I grabbed it, my hands trembling as I struggled to light it. Just as the flame flickered to life, I heard claws dragging against the wood outside. I turned, petrified, and that's when I saw it. A shadow hovering just beyond the door, its eyes gleaming like two dark stars. Whatever it wasn't done with us yet. I backed away, my heart racing, feeling the wood creak beneath my feet. The lantern's light flickered, casting eerie shadows across the room. The shadow outside shifted, and I felt its gaze bore into me, but I couldn't look away. If I did, it might slip inside while my back was turned. The lantern glowed brighter, illuminating the space. Dust and cobwebs hung in the corners, and old furniture loomed like forgotten sentinels. I searched for a way out, my mind racing. Could I escape through the back? The creature had shown surprising speed, but I'd need to take a chance. Just then, I heard a loud crash against the front door, and splinters flew as the beast pounded again. "Please, please," I whispered, backing toward the back wall, clutching the lantern tightly. The creature was relentless. I didn't know how long the door could hold against its fury. Suddenly, the back window caught my eye. A glimmer of hope. It was small, but if I could just get it open and squeeze through, I could escape. I darted to it, adrenaline pushing me to move faster. The creature bellowed outside, the growl reverberating through the old cabin like a thunderclap, making the structure shudder. I pried the window open, the rusted hinges screaming in protest. Just as I was about to crawl through, I caught sight of movement beyond the door. The beast leaned in, its monstrous face silhouetted against the lantern light, drool dripping from its jagged teeth. No time to think. I wedged my body through the narrow opening, feeling the wood scrape my sides. I twisted and fell onto the ground outside, landing heavily, pain shooting through my shoulder as I rolled away. The cabin echoed with the sound of chaos behind me. I could feel its fury, the weight of its frustration vibrating through the air. Ignoring the ache, I jumped up and ran, sprinting into the thick woods once more, guided only by the faint light of the moon above. I didn't know if my friend had made it out as well, but I had little time to dwell on that. All I could do was keep running. The whispers returned, a cacophony in my ears. Each step felt like a battle. Should I flee blindly or try to figure out where the heart of this nightmare lay? The vague memory of the man's notes, the path to the heart, urged me onward. If anything could lead me to safety, it would be whatever the woods were hiding. In the distance, I glimpsed shapes among the trees, figures that flickered in and out of sight, their movements too fluid, too ghostly to be human. I could feel the darkness encroaching, pulling at me with whispering fingers. And then the realization hit me. The sensation of being watched was more than paranoia. It was real. Something about the woods was alive, deeply attuned to intruders, including myself. Stumbling, I glanced back and saw the creature crashing through the trees behind me, its form wild and untamed. The lantern light had revealed just enough to confirm what I feared. It wasn't just hunting. It was drawing strength from the whispers surrounding us. I had to reach the lake to discover the truth about what lay beneath the surface of those despiteful waters. It was my only option. I pushed forward, branches clawing at my skin, the whispers increasing in volume, almost drowning out my thoughts. Just a little further, I urged myself, fueled by a surge of determination mixing with fear. If there was a path, I had to find it. Then, the terrain shifted, the ground dipped, and I felt a rush of relief as I broke through to a clearing that opened up before me. The moonlight glared down, illuminating the water shimmering like glass. But it was not just the lake. It was something nestled at its edge. Shivering, I approached the water, searching its depths with a mix of dread and hope. Figures swam just beneath the surface, faces twisted in anguish, mouths moving in a silent scream. The whispers grew louder. And then I heard a voice cut through the chaos, a haunting lullaby that sent chills cascading down my spine. "Come closer," it beckoned. "No!" I shouted, shaking my head violently as I pressed my palms against my ears. The ground trembled beneath me, and I could see shadows rising from the depths. The lake itself felt alive. I needed to resist. This was a trap. But the pull was strong, and I could feel myself teetering on the edge, caught between the truth I sought and the danger that ensnared me. "Where are you?" I yelled into the lake, sensing I was not alone. The flame of hope flickered in the pit of my stomach. What had happened to my friend? Had he made it this far? Before I could think of anything else, a panicked voice broke into the fray. "Where are you?" It was him, and he staggered into view, gasping for breath. Relief washed over me at the sight. It was a glimmer of safety. "Over here!" I shouted, wavering on the brink of the lake. But as he drew closer, I noticed the shadows around him lapping at his feet like curious children, seeking their next victim. "Don't come too close," I cried, but it was too late. He stepped into the water, entranced by the whispers now tangled in the air between us. The lake an inescapable siren. "No!" I screamed, reaching for him. The shadows seized him instantly, dragging him under, his terrified face the last thing I saw before he disappeared beneath the surface. My heart thudded in my chest as I collapsed to my knees, the truth settling like a stone deep within me. This wasn't a place to seek answers. It was a facade, a trap set by whatever dark presence watched over this cursed lake. I was left with nothing, except the weight of all I hadn't been able to understand. And just like that, the darkness closed in around me once more. In that moment, the whispers faded, leaving an unbearable silence that churned in the pit of my stomach. A reminder that the answers I sought were likely never to be unearthed. I backed away from the water, stumbling back into the woods with the weight of despair heavy on my heels. The shadows still flitted around me, taunting and lingering, but now I understood. I had escaped the creature for now, but I knew it would follow. The woods, the lake, the whispers, they were all part of the same dark web, and as I fled yet again, propelled by fear and uncertainty, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had yet to uncover the truth. The shadows remained, whispering their secrets, and I knew I might never be free from what I had encountered that night. As dawn began to hint at the horizon, I forced one final glance back toward the lake, hoping against hope for a glimpse of my friend. Instead, all I saw was the quiet rippling of water, shimmering innocently under the first light of day.